So you remember variables, you know, your ints, your chars, your characters, your strings. Yeah, they're good and all, but they can only store one value. Like, if I put a integer here and call it var, it can only store one value. What if I want to store multiple variables? They might be asking, when will I want to do that? Let's take this. You're a teacher in a university, and you have just received your students' grades. Now, I know this is the most basic example, and everyone uses this, but it's the best. Now, let's say there are 2 students, so you need to create code to grade them. So you're like, okay, let's just go do the variables, right? So let's just, since there's only 2 students, let's say student 1 grade equals 12 in student 2 grades equals 15. Yep, done. And now I just need to check them. That's good and all, but what about in case there are 5 students? Okay, I guess I'm just gonna have to 3, 4, 5. And I'm done. Okay, what about 10 students? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And okay. What about 20 students, 30 students, 40 students, 50 students, 60 students, 70 students, 80 students, 90 students, 100 students? What about that? You can see the problem here. How could we put a variable for each student, let alone use them all in the code without filling the main block to make it full? Well, this is where the array comes in. The array comes in. So let's see it. Student. So to declare an array, you start with this. Int student scores. Int student scores. This student scores. Int student scores. Nice. And to declare an array, you put square brackets. Now, you put a number in here. No matter what type, you always put a number in here. This is how many variables are stored here. So let's say 100. And semicolon. Now that's good. We have created a array. Now how do we access this array? Well, let's say we wanted to see the grades of the first student. What we would do, to find out the grades, to access those grades, student scores, square brackets, and then the index. Index. Well, why am I putting 0? Wouldn't that be like, there's a 1, it goes, counting systems go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no, and we don't have a 0 value in there, so what gives? Well, coding uses a special counting system where actually everything's shifted 1 to the right. So basically, 1 in the coding sense would be 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, the counting system starts from 0. So to get the coders from coding number system from the regular number system, just shift everything to the right once. So in this case, we need to use this counting system. So by putting 0 here, I'm accessing 1, the first value of this array. If I were to actually put 1 here, thinking to access this, I would end up accessing this because I'm actually putting 1. Make sense? Good. Okay, let's see what... Anyway, now that that's done, let's see what happens. 0. Well, why is it 0? It's because we haven't initialized any of these values. So let's do that. Let's do that quickly. So how do you initialize values of an array? What do? You put in equals and then curly braces. Now in these curly braces, you want to put in some values. So for instance, 13, 15, and 17. Now what did I put in? Now what are these going to do? What it's going to do is the first value of this array will be equal to 13. The second value of this array will be equal to 15. And the third value of this array will be equal to 17. Get that? Now then, what about the rest? They'll all be equal to 0 because I haven't given them a value yet. But I've given the first 3 a value. So now if we print out... Let's change that back to 0. Now if we print out the first value, we are getting 13. Because the first value is 13. Let's actually print out each 3 values with a for loop. Because I'm lazy and stuff. Student, let's do cout. Student scores I end out. Now, again, if you're confused, I is just referencing this. So we're using an integer to fetch the array value from the array. So we get 13, 15, 17. The 13 is the first value because there I equals 0, and you know 0 equals 1. 0 means get the first value. And then we have 15, which is I equals 2. I equals 2. Well, I equals 1 when we were fetching the second value because 1 means get the second value. Then 17 because I equal 2. So that means get the third value. What about changing values midway? What if we want to say change the second value to something different? Or maybe define the fourth value? So to do that, we say it's simple. Student scores 1. Okay, again, 1 to get the second value, which is 15, equals 20. It's as simple as that. We can even do that we can even set new things. And I'll prove it to you by printing out student scores 1, endl, and student scores 3. I'll actually change this to 2, 1, 2 just for variation. So as you can see down here, those are our 2 values, and they've just been changed. For even more simplicity, I'm actually going to copy and paste this, get rid of all this code, as we won't need it, and let's see. So that 15 comes from here, which is before we even change the second value. Then we change the second value to 20 and change the fourth value from 0, which is what it's initially defined to, as you remember, when you don't pass a value to that one, to 212. Then we print out both, and you see the second value changed from 15 to 20 obviously you can also perform operations like plus plus and minus minus. Obviously you can do all that stuff, but yeah, it's basically, so that's how you do it. Arrays come in very handy for storing long sets of data that have similar properties, and you're not just confined to ints. You can also create arrays of strings, check characters, booleans, anything, even classes. But I'll show you the class one next. But anyway, if you like this, press the like button. Subscribe to me if you want to see more coding videos, or if you're more into gaming videos, I have those too. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.